Welcome to Dance Uncorked podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Jean, and welcome to season 3. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really pumped about this season. As you know, I'm going to be interviewing some of my oldest students from my time over at Spotlight Dance Center in Orlando, Florida. And first up is Donae Fourth. How are
Hello,
you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm trying to remember back when I first met you. Like, how old were you? Do you remember?
I was definitely in high school,
Yeah.
so probably 14, 15.
Yeah.
So a baby in comparison.
Yeah, I totally, yes. You were kind of what I would call my second generation of
Hmm.
students in my 10-year period that I was kind of with Spotlight. I started with like the original folks that were there for like my very first classes, and then half of them graduated and went on. So you were kind of like in that second generation of my time at Spotlight, and I loved having you. You were such a wonderful student.
Thank
You
you. I
really
love having you as
were.
a teacher.
No, you guys, and I think I said this in the group chat, like you all set the bar really high, as far as what I expect from students who are taking dance in a private studio setting, between your dedication and your focus and just your overall like kindness as like young human beings. That is what I expect students to rise to, wherever I teach. So thank you for setting the bar high for
Oh,
me.
you're so welcome. And thank you for those kind words. I think when you are that young, you have no idea. You always think about the impact that your teachers can have on you, but you never think about as a student the impact that you can have on teachers. So that's really sweet to hear.
Right, because you're a kid. Like
Yeah,
you're not even, that's like not even a thing. Um,
right.
but yes, like full circle around. This is really sweet to do this season with all of you, and just to reconnect. I haven't
Hmm.
talked to you or seen you in quite some time. So I'm really excited that you said yes to doing this and that you're kicking off season 3. This is really
Yay.
a great start. So thank you
Awesome.
for being here.
Yeah.
Before we get started on talking about our dance superpowers that you have discovered from your time in dance training and how it led you to success in your current career, we need to talk about this wine that you actually picked out.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is the McBride Sisters Collection Chardonnay. And I will do my best not to spend more than 10 minutes talking about this, but it is so easy to geek out on this stuff, and especially this particular wine because of the story behind it. So thank you for picking this, Donae. I was really excited to see this. I think we both found it at our Whole Foods.
Hmm.
And for a really great price point, mine was actually on sale for like $14.95.
Same.
So really accessible as far as like the grocery store you can find it at. Whole Foods is pretty national, so that's easy to find. And then also price point as well. So let's talk about the McBride sisters. When you log into their website, the first thing that you see is a huge quote that says, "Go where you don't belong because someday you will."
Mm.
And that alone, I was like, all right, I'm in. You hooked me, hook, line, and sink me.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was just really powerful. And their story really leads up to why this is kind of the forefront of their business. These are two sisters, Robin and Andrea, and they actually grew up apart, not knowing that the other existed, until 1999. So they spent most of their life not knowing that they had a sister, and then they connected in some way, and then met up in person in 1999. In 2005, they started importing New Zealand wine. By the way, one sister grew up in California, Monterey, California, and then the
Hmm.
other one grew up in, oh, I had to look this up. It's in New Zealand. Um,
Okay.
and
That's
I
why I thought
believe,
I remembered that.
yeah, the region is pronounced Aotearoa. That is such an American way to say it. I'm so sorry, my fellow New Zealanders. But it's a region in New Zealand and New Zealand is actually a really big competitor and hub for
Yeah.
wine. It's very distinct though, wine.
Hmm.
There is one vineyard or wine cellar here and winemaker in my area in Eugene that actually makes wine in the New Zealand style because I believe the winemaker is from New Zealand. So
Oh, very cool.
yeah, you can go there and get like Oregon style Sauvignon
Hmm.
Blanc and then like a New Zealand style and just kind of taste the difference. Um,
Hmm.
and to me, there's this really beautiful like grassiness to
Yes.
New Zealand white wine. And that sounds so bad, but it's not. Like you drink it and you're like, I like this.
Hmm.
Like it makes me want to go mow the yard a little bit, but like it's a good thing. They have three brands: the McBride Sisters Collection. They also have Black Girl Magic, which like took me by surprise. I didn't realize that they were the owners of that brand as well. And it's She Can wine and spritzers. So those are all in the
I
cans.
can. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they have those three brands. In 2010, they launched Eco.Love Wines, making them the first Black women sister duo to found a wine company in the United States. So right off the bat, they are trailblazing from the
Yeah.
get-go because
Snaps for them.
they're the first to do it, from a female perspective and then from a Black female perspective.
Hmm.
So they right off the get-go, they were just set to create pathways and access for women and particularly Black women and minorities that want to start businesses and be entrepreneurs. They also started a nonprofit organization called the She Can Fund. They have a She Can Grow initiative, and this is actually a scholarship program that's directed toward historically Black colleges and universities. And the goal is to generate a pipeline of HBCU students to lead the wine industry's future of diverse professionals. So
That's so amazing.
yeah, like they're tapping into so many really important things here, not just making money and like doing their business because it was their dream. They're also finding ways to tap back into their communities and to
Hmm.
uh, build strong avenues for future longevity of this industry. So I think that's really special about them because I know that not all winemakers are doing this kind of stuff
Yeah,
to
yeah,
give
yeah.
back. In 2023, they acquired the M Ranch Estate in Napa Valley, California. So they now have their own vineyard.
Yes, and I've been meaning to go. I live in San Francisco, so Napa is really pretty close. And so it's definitely on my bucket list to visit their winery soon.
It's on my list now, and I'm going to call you when I'm in San Fran
Yes,
because I love
please.
San Francisco. And if it's close, like we should just go. We should
Yeah.
totally just go. So that's exciting for them. Um, they're paving the way for females to lead the wine industry, which is particularly and historically male dominated. So
Hmm.
this is why they are trailblazers and they are leaving no crumbs behind, like in my opinion. And they also don't have a legacy. They're not legacy winemakers or wine owners. A lot of the vineyards and people that are in the wine industry, it's because it's a family business that's been in their
Yeah.
family for generations. They are not like that. They are starting their legacy, which is really, I think, another important factor to bring up here. Their website is rich with recipes, holiday spotlights, and other informational snippets that educate readers on Black culture, and they celebrate Blackness through the vessel of wine.
Mm.
So it's just like I could have spent hours on this website because of how much stuff they have, not just on their wine, but just these like recipes. And then they had another section for like recipes of the African diaspora. And then they had Juneteenth something or other over here. So they're picking and like really highlighting these important markers in Black culture to bring to the forefront and to use it to share with others and to also, in my opinion, educate people who may not know about it. And
Sure.
wine is the vessel.
Exactly. And I also love how they're bringing wine closer to folks who are of the Black or the African diaspora who may think that wine is not for them, or the foods
Exactly.
that we eat, the foods that are traditional to our heart and our culture don't pair with wine, but showing how actually we can start to pair this with wine and bringing us a lot more closer and kind of opening a safe environment for people to explore and then start to enjoy wine where they otherwise may not have felt that comfort too.
It goes back to their quote, go where you don't belong because
Yes,
someday you will. Like that is
exactly.
exactly the door that they're opening for
Mhm.
others. So they had to open the door, or they probably had to push through the door. I don't think people
Right,
probably were like, come on in, you know.
right, yeah.
So they found a way to really push through that door and stay in that space. And now they're opening the door and allowing others, especially people who identify as Black, into this industry, which is not traditionally associated with Black culture. So
Yeah,
I love that. I'm, like I
me
said, I was
too.
so excited to read about this.
Yeah, and I felt like it was really important, and that coming off of Black History Month, going into Women's History Month, to pick a wine that was made by two Black women for all the reasons that we just talked about. You know, being in traditionally white or male-dominated spaces, carving out your own kind of legacy, and being able to bring others within your culture, but also share your culture with the world.
Oh my God. This Donae, this is why I'm so proud of you all. Like I can't like deal with how thoughtful and just you all are just so intelligent, and I knew it back then, and I'm like it's driving all of your success now. So
Oh,
I love that. Thank you for picking this wine. It is the Chardonnay, and it's a
yes,
California Chard. So here's the thing
yes.
about California Chards. They tend to be buttery, more
Hmm.
so than Oregon. We do a lot more steel fermenting with our Chardonnays here, and we do a hint of oak just to kind of like keep it true to the Chardonnay. But we actually don't like the buttery stuff up here. That's not a thing for us.
I
How
love it.
I
Maybe
know,
I'm like
right?
a
Like
true Californian now.
I mean, I don't discriminate. I love it all. But
Yeah.
Oregonians typically do not like the buttery wines or the buttery Chardonnays. However, I'm excited to try this because I have a feeling it's actually more along the lines of an Oregon style Chardonnay because this wine is sunshine in your glass. That's what they say. It's hints of flint and wet rock, keeps things extra interesting on the way to a long, fresh fruit finish.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm excited to try it. I think we should try it. I'm not going to say the specific notes yet. I want us to taste
Okay.
it first and then
And
see if
then,
we pick up what they recommend that are
okay,
in the tasting notes.
got it.
Okay,
This
so
is always so
here's,
funny whenever I go to like a winery and they're like, "What are you tasting?" And I was like, "Lemon, citrus." And I'm like, "Yes."
yeah,
I just made that up.
it's as simple as that. Like it's
Yeah.
honestly as simple as that. But like some like real, how do you, would you ever say like hints of Flint? I get it.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
like I would never say that either. So I love that they have this extra stuff here for us, but ultimately the question is, do you like it or not? Like that is it.
Exactly.
So cheers, Donae. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's try this. Smells good. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Mm. It kind of reminds me of like a nice kind of warm cheese. And I can't remember the actual cheese that I'm thinking of, but maybe that's I'm picking up on the butteriness of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, almost like a brie is what it kind of like reminds
Yes.
me of, and I'm sure that would pair really well with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I get the hint of oak as well.
Hmm.
And it is not, it's not as a buttery Chardonnay. Like I wouldn't classify it as such, but you definitely
Mm.
get the hint of oak, but it's not so acidic that it
Yes.
reminds me of an Oregon Chardonnay because Oregon Chardonnays
Okay.
are a little bit more acidic. They have a little bit more of an acidic punch to it.
Hmm.
This one is really smooth.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
It's they recommend that it pairs well with seafood, poultry dishes, and like veggie heavy meals.
Okay.
So I agree. I think that would be super complimentary to anything like that. Okay, here's what they said as far as the tasting notes. White peach. I get a little peach. I could see the peach.
Yeah.
Pear,
Yeah. I definitely got the pear.
citrus,
Hmm.
green apple, which I do get a little of,
Okay. Yeah.
and then a hint of oak.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I love it.
I feel like we nailed it as far as tasting notes. We can be sommeliers tomorrow. Like no problem.
No problem. Easy.
No
And
problem.
it's also like super warm today in SF. And so I said, let me pick something that's like light and refreshing, like a good
Yeah.
warm day kind of wine.
Today's
Because
the
normally
first day in Oregon that it's actually reaching like 70 degrees. So this
oh,
is
and I'm
like
sure
our
everyone's like,
like this is like spring's here. Like it's
yeah.
the winter is almost over, guys. So the sun is
Mhm.
out. We are also happy today. I mowed my yard, did all the things.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
Yes, I did all the things. Well, thank you for picking out that beautiful wine. I will link all of the information about this wine and the McBride Sisters collection, and Black Girl Magic and all their other brands, down in the show notes. And I'll post things about it on social. It'll be on the website. So people can definitely find out where to get this. Go on their website. You can actually find out where they distribute, and they distribute to almost every state in the country. So you can find their wine. It's really easy to find this and try it. And I think both of us would recommend that you do, because it's
Yes,
delicious.
definitely.
So thanks for that. Donae, tell me a little bit about, in like a 5-minute brief summary.
Okay.
Tell me about your dance history, like how you got into dance, like when you got into dance, and kind of what happened along the way to get you to the career that you're in now.
Sure. So I started dance when I was little. I vividly remember watching, I believe it was an episode of Babar, and I don't know if you know this like cartoon TV show from way back in the 90s, but it had this really beautiful piano intro. And I remember being in my living room and just kind of pretending to do ballet along to the intro. And then I think at that point, my mom was like, okay, like let's start to think about getting her involved in dance. So I think it was probably either first or second grade when I first started taking ballet.
Okay.
I danced, I did ballet, I did tap, I did jazz, I did a little
And this
bit
was
of,
all at Spotlight, right?
and this was all,
All at
well, my
Spotlight.
first year was at a different studio, but
Okay.
the majority of my dance career was at Spotlight Dance
Okay.
Center. So I tried a lot of everything. And then I danced a little bit in college. So I still did kind of like contemporary dance in college. And then I graduated college, wasn't able to keep up with dance as I started my first career, which was in healthcare consulting. I worked in healthcare consulting for about 4 years until I said, I want to go into something that's a little bit more closer to the end user and in a kind of a more exciting industry than healthcare. So I went to grad school in LA to go into entertainment. While in grad school, we have a competition every year called Challenge for Charity. And one of the competitions is like a lot of sports throughout the weekend, but there's always a dance competition. And I like jumped on it during my first year. I was like, this is so exciting. Getting back into dance, like getting with a group of girls and choreographing a piece and then performing it for judges. Like just the feeling of being back on stage with the lights on you and all these a sea of faces was just so electrifying to me. Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of prohibited me from doing that my second year of grad school, but nevertheless, I still kind of do my pirouettes and work on my form at home.
Right? In the
Yeah,
kitchen every
in
once
the
in a while.
kitchen. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll turn to my husband, I'm like, oh my God, did you see that? And he's like, what? And I'm like, okay, fine. And now I am a project manager and I work at one of the largest tech companies in the
Awesome.
world.
Love that. I love that you like have already had a career change. I
Yes.
That's really cool to be confident in that. And I'm finding like that's normal now.
Hmm.
Like kind of
Yeah.
every 5 years, people tend to change careers or change jobs, and it's becoming more of a normal thing. I don't know if that's in my realm because I'm that elder millennial age where I'm kind of like, no, you must be with the same company for 25 years. So I'm kind of that mindset a little bit, but
Hmm.
who knows. And I love watching how it's changing for younger people, and particularly younger professionals just changing careers quickly. So
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole world out there with so many career paths and opportunities. And sometimes it's scary to jump from one career to another, but I think I've learned so much in being able to pivot from different types of careers in different industries that like kind of keeps life interesting.
yeah, where did you get your undergrad degree?
I went to Emory in Atlanta, and I've also moved around a bunch, which kind of like helps to shape my
Yeah,
worldview.
it was like
So
you've gone cross country like me.
yes, yeah. So for the listeners at home, I grew up in Florida, which is where we met.
Mhm.
And then I went to Atlanta for college, lived there for 8 years, moved to LA for grad school, and then now I live in the Bay Area in San Francisco.
Nice. Okay, I'm definitely calling you next time I'm in.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, I love that city. Cool. Well, thank you for that. And along the way, I mean, you spent many years in dance. And I don't know, did you ever think that you would do it professionally, or is that something you ever wanted to pursue? Spotlight was very much a recreational studio. We did competition like one a year. It wasn't heavy on the career path,
Mhm.
unless you very much express that, because we definitely have dancers that have come out of Spotlight that have danced professionally or are in some sort of like professional entertainment um, career at this point.
Mhm.
So it's kind of, but it was very recreational. So I'm wondering if you ever thought that you would go down that path of a professional dance career.
Yeah, definitely. And I think most little girls, when you're little, you're like, I want to be a ballerina when I grow up. But I actually really wanted to be a rockette. Like there was just
Yeah.
something about, the doing the Christmas program every year and the type of dance that really kind of like spoke to me. And I thought about it seriously. I think at the end of the day, I thought that dance has a very short shelf life.
Mm.
And seeing other people that I knew who were older than me that worked in entertainment, it comes like hills and valleys. Some days you have a lot of gigs, and sometimes it's really hard to be able to find work. And I am a very risk averse person by nature, so I wanted something that was a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
But being able to find schools and cities where I could continue to dance recreationally was really important for me. I have friends who are Rockettes and I support them, have supported them by going to see their shows. And every Thanksgiving, I'm like, huh, what if? But yeah,
Right.
I know. But I think in the long run, I am happy with my decision and happy that I still have the opportunity to go back to dance after so many years.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your reasoning for choosing a different career path outside of dance resonates with lots of people, including me. Like, I had to make that choice at some point, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't think I want to live that life because it
Yeah.
seems really stressful. And I think if that is something that you're willing to just go and do, because like your goal, you feel so strongly about that goal, people do it. But I found that I just didn't. I was like, I don't feel that strongly about that goal, so I'm gonna go do this and learn about 401ks and like technical retirement,
Right.
because ultimately, like that's the end of it. Um,
Yeah.
so I love that. I think that it resonates a lot what you just said and your reasoning behind it, for choosing a different path.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, in that time, all that time that you spent dancing, regardless of whether you were going to be a professional dancer or not, what are your dance superpowers that you have found that got you through undergrad and that 4 year period of your career in healthcare consulting? What got you through grad school? Because Lord knows you need some kind of like ethereal help to get through grad school. It is hard. So
Yes,
like
it
you
is.
have to push through somehow, some way. And I know just knowing you, and working with you many many years ago, that there are some dance powers that I think really like followed through for you and showed up for you when you needed them. So what are your dance superpowers that you found, bring found that like helped you find success in your careers and in your journey to like really finding your career at this point?
Yeah, and I really love this question because I remember when you asked all of us, I was like, this is something I haven't really thought about. But now that I've gotten time to think about it, there's so many things. I think the first really important superpower is just the art of discipline.
Mm,
You have to show up for people. You go to rehearsals, you go to class, being able to learn and kind of practice and understand that practice is a part of this art. You can't just continue to kind of, coast or expect to learn something or expect to get land a jump or a move by not putting in the work to actually get to the next level. And I think that's so important as you think about in a career, you have to continuously learn to upskill yourself, learn to really perfect your craft or work on some of your vulnerable areas to be able to get to the next opportunity. Because there are other people who are out there putting that work in, who are getting these opportunities, and you want to remain competitive, you kind of have to put that work in. That carried me through my first career, certainly through grad school when you're there for a finite amount of time and your ultimate goal is to come out with a job. I have to put the work in to get to what my goal is, which is getting another job and kind of getting to the next level of my career.
yeah. No, discipline is a good one, and I don't think that's been specifically called out yet. I think
Mm,
other people have like mentioned it or like roped it into another like very specific superpower, but discipline, even at a recreational studio, like there
yeah.
was discipline to that. And
Yes.
um Miss Margaret, like
She
you
didn't play.
know, it was like it's a recreational studio, but Miss Margaret was a professional ballerina, so like she had
Yes,
expectations and you had to meet them.
you sure
Um,
did.
she's hard, she still is, and she's one of the best instructors that I've ever had. And I know she's touched even more lives just through her long-standing career, and the way she
Absolutely.
instructed and those expectations, and she kind of like guided you through what discipline meant.
Yeah. And within her expectations, it wasn't just meeting the expectations that she had. Like, in a way, she was also making sure that we met all the other dancers' expectations. And I like to think about, or the analogy that I would give is working in a team setting. If you are collaborating in a team environment, they have expectations of you to be able to show up every day to do the work that you need to do, to play your part, to uplift others. And thinking about, there was a time in my high school career where I was really juggling, prioritizing between school and dance and music. And I just had a lot going on when there were times where I would like not show up to class. And you can't do that. Like you have the other people have an expectation that you are going to be there. It's really difficult when you are teaching something. You've got a recital in 2 months and you have one dancer who's gone and everyone has to work around you or imagine you in that spot and continue to learn and kind of have that continuity throughout. And so when I think back to the times that she gave me a very stern talking to, it wasn't just that I was disappointing her, but I was actually letting down like the entire group. And I think
Yeah.
that is something that as a child you don't really think about. But looking back on my career and all the fond memories I have in dance, I thought like that is a really big part of being in a dance environment. Like you have to be a team player and that like any work setting is super applicable.
Yeah, I mean, that is the hardest part about teaching, especially recital prep. Like, I even in the class that I'm teaching right now at our local studio here, I'm like, I don't even know if there's been a single day when all of them have been here. Like, and I
Mhm.
have a lot of, there's like 30 of them. So I'm doing the best I can. It might not, like, as far as on stage and cleanliness of the lines and the formations, it might not be there, just because it is challenging to get so many children who are also involved in so many different other things, um,
Right.
and to get them in one place at one time. It is possible, and if you have the discipline, like in this like understanding of like teamwork, I feel like most students will show up more, but I know it's also difficult. So sometimes
Yeah,
these kids are just trying to do the best they can, and these parents trying to shuffle them from one thing to the next. um,
exactly.
so I don't know. I think that's a really good superpower though. It does bring you through lots of other things that have nothing to do with dance, like this whole idea of
Right.
teamwork.
Yeah, and prioritization too. When you are 16 and you're thinking about college and what your future looks like, you want to do as much as possible, but you only have 24 hours in a day and so much energy mentally and physically to do everything. So being able to understand like, okay, I need to be better about how like maximize my time and how I stack rank everything I'm involved in Same thing at work. When I start to feel overwhelmed, I'm like, I have to take a step back and say, okay, how am I overstretching myself? What can I deprioritize in favor of other more important work? Like,
Yep.
what is it that I am like choosing to kind of say, like, this is my ultimate goal or my focus, and then rearrange all of my work around that?
Yeah, and like where is your energy going to benefit the most?
Exactly.
And what's important, you know? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, prioritizing is a big one too. What other superpowers are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think learning and adapting quickly.
Mhm.
So when I think about not even just recital prep, but in a typical class, when you got across the floor or center floor work, you have a teacher that's calling out these moves at you and they're calling out 8 counts. And sometimes you can take a little bit more time to learn. And sometimes you have to learn really quickly if you have a gig coming up. And so being able to very quickly learn something, internalize it, adapt, be able to embellish. I think in a work environment, that's super important because sometimes you're dropped into a new team or a team that's going through things, and you probably have a very finite amount of time under which you have to learn the ropes, learn how everything functions, learn the language to be able to be successful. And sometimes things kind of go sideways. Sometimes you have a dancer missing. Sometimes your team's whole scope gets shifted. You have to be super adaptable and learn how to flex under kind of like stressful situations.
Absolutely. I don't know how many times that's happened in the workplace. I work in safety, so
Mhm.
sometimes like we get called in on to respond to things,
Right.
and we have to be able to like jump in and go there without
Yes.
thinking too much about it. Keeping that level head and like tapping into the training that you've been given to like be able to handle something like that, but then also like just being able to roll with the punches because it might,
Mhm.
you never really know what to expect in
Mhm.
an emergency or an incident. So
Yeah.
I agree with
Being
you.
able to make snap decisions on limited information, but being able to pass it off as something that, aesthetically pleasing.
Oh,
I, oh my gosh, I remember a story where I had a recital and my point shoe got stuck in a hole in the in the floor. And I just said, I'm stuck in this hole. I'm just gonna like continue to do my pirouette and hope that I don't break my ankle. And you
right.
have to fake it till you make it. And sometimes you are kind of going through, like you said, having to roll with the punches and just go along with it and hope that,
And
you come out
perform
on the other side and perform.
like
Exactly.
at the same time because you can't lose your cool. Like you
No,
have to, because it's like how many things happen on stage that the audience has no idea that that happened.
right,
Like how many
right.
stories have you told other people where I'm like, this happened up there, and they were like, we had no clue. I'm like, great, then we all did our job,
Then we did
because
our job.
that is the gig. Like you have to perform and you have to like keep the show rolling and like
Mhm.
go as status quo. Like it's got to look like status quo. So I think in the workplace too, that has shown up for me quite a bit, like in stressful situations. I think one of my colleagues was like, does Lindsay ever get mad? Like I've never seen her get mad. And I'm just like, in my head I am screaming, but like
Right.
externally I don't know, like I just go into performance mode, and I don't
Mhm.
want other people to see that stress or that anxiety that's happening, but on the inside I am like screaming inside, uh,
Yeah,
and mine's going a mile a minute to try and figure out
right.
a solution. But
Exactly.
for the most part, yeah, that performative aspect of like adapting to something is
Mhm.
really a tight skill to have that really is special to dancers and other performance artists.
Yeah, and also thinking ahead of like some what could go wrong? Like what are all of these scenarios? It's scenario planning is basically what it
Yeah.
is. What are all the things that could go wrong? Like when I was a dancer, we would walk on the stage and see what the stage was like, how does it feel? Then I can get a sense like, is there a hole that my shoe is gonna get stuck in? And understanding like how I can avoid that.
How do I avoid that part
How do
right
I
there?
avoid that? Or I remember we had a performance where we were doing a handstand, and when you're nervous, your hands sweat, and I was like, I don't want to slip and fall, so make sure I have rosin on this side to be able to like prevent that. Like
Yep.
you're just doing so much scenario planning, and especially with project management, you have to think at what point can this project go wrong? What are all the roadblocks to execution? And how do I make sure I have the things set up in place to ensure like a smooth delivery of this project?
Yeah. No, totally. Planning is absolutely planning ahead is
Yes.
a
Mhm.
key to everything. And I feel like it makes you such an invaluable teammate when you have that skill to be able to like constantly be the reminder, like it's a little pokey of us to be like,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about this. Like, have you thought about that? It might seem a little like pokey, but in reality, like it's really good to have that person on your team to be thinking about that, because then there's
Yes.
everyone has their role, right? Like there's somebody that's dealing with the present right now and that's really good at the right now. But then you have like people like you and I who are here who are okay with the right now, but we're actually really good at thinking about what's
Mhm.
coming up.
Yeah,
And that you need all the roles on your team to be
exactly.
successful.
Whether we're thinking 8 counts ahead or like 8 weeks, 8 months, like, you know?
Exactly. Well, do you have any other superpowers that you were thinking about?
Yes, I was actually thinking about this one this morning, being open and receptive to feedback,
Ooh,
especially in a creative environment. You make yourself so vulnerable to people's critique and to their words and their criticism, but you have to understand like how to receive, how to understand, and then how you can change your behavior or what you're doing to like, improve your craft. The reason why I was thinking about this is because I remember a class I had. I think it was like a pretty rough ballet class, and you were waiting outside with your other class to like transition into the room. And I walked out, and I saw you in the corner. I was like, oh no, she's gonna say something, and you're like, you need to put your heels down when you land.
I was so nosy all the time.
I was like, dang it, she clocked me.
Saw
But
you.
yeah, but then understanding like, okay, this isn't, what type of feedback is this? Is this nitpicky feedback? Is it just her being nosy? Or is she, really trying to help me improve and give me feedback for like the betterment of my craft and my dance like abilities? She's telling me, hey, I need to like actually land because of XYZ reasons. And so
Yeah.
being able to understand like when you get feedback, where is this feedback coming from? How can this feedback benefit me? And then what do I need to do to start to incorporate that feedback into my work is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And putting your heels down is important when you land.
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
Mostly for safety too. Like I think that's probably
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
I was coming, like that's probably I was like, okay, she continues this for another year, like this could be bad. So that's probably where that come from. But of course, knowing me, it came out like, you need to put your heels down. And I would just walk off. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
let's
That's
go.
exactly what you did. You like tap me and you goes, you need to put your heels down. And then you walk right into class. And I was like, noted.
I don't know how y'all put up with me for so long. Oh boy.
We loved it.
Oh,
To this day, people, this is like not work related, but when I work out a lot and I worked out with a trainer who did like group classes at my apartment building. He always talked about my strong core, and I always credited with your class because
yes.
your core warm up was like 64 crunches over the course of
Yeah.
a few minutes and a minute plank. And to this day,
Yeah.
like final dance superpower, just to kind of round out a lot of our discussion, is the importance of community. I think when I think back to the people who have had the biggest impact in my life, a lot of the friends and really family that I made at Spotlight have become like some of the biggest contributors to who I am today. I mean, Margaret and Peter, just the amount of love and dedication that they've shown to their business, but to myself and certainly every single child who walks in that door, being able to see a talent and wanting to nurture and grow that talent is so important, especially for like young Black and brown women who, we don't always see dancers that look like ourselves represented on stage or even in, smaller recreational studios like that. So just like a huge thank you to them. And then to all the other girls, Sophia, Jennifer, Laura, Lisa, like everyone that I met there, having that community that you can surround yourself with that, become your biggest cheerleaders and your biggest support system has been super important. And that is the type of environment that I've sought out with when it comes to my work environments. I really thrive when I have that support system because that system, they can be there when you are fall and they can help you when you're up. They can speak your name in doors and rooms that you've never heard of before. And it's so important to have that support system to help you through each step of your career.
I just got goosebumps. I think this season is going to turn out to be a love letter to Spotlight Dance Center, um,
Yes,
and Peter and
absolutely.
Margaret. because it was such a special place. And very much like you, Danae, like I seek it, that type of community, that type of work environment and mentorship. I
Yes.
seek that in any place that I go, whether it's dance related or any place where I'm gonna have to work with people closely for a good amount of my time here on this earth, right?
Hmm.
Because I loved what you just said, because the amount of love that they had, and showed towards their students, but not without, like, love didn't just, it wasn't one thing. Like
Hmm.
Miss Margaret had to pull you aside for a stern conversation.
Yeah.
That's also
That's
love.
love. Yeah.
And I feel like they had a really nice way of balancing that, and like really, I don't know how they did it. I think it's just because they're special people. Like they just knew how to show all sides of love to every single student that walked through that door. It wasn't just one, it wasn't just favorites, it wasn't just their children, which
Right.
that's like probably the biggest takeaway for me is like their children were students at the studio.
Hmm.
And I mean, I grew up at most studios, and it's very common at studios for studio children, like the owner's kids, to be favorites or favorite or fetishized in a way,
Hmm.
and pedestaled. And that
Yeah.
just happened at this studio. And I think it's a testimony to who they are as human beings, and how well they run a business, like
Yeah.
honestly,
Absolutely.
and how much they care for others. So I think this season, now that you've said that, I think it just solidifies like this is the love letter to Spotlight Dance Center that we all want to, share, because it
Yeah.
touched our lives, so it impacted us so greatly, uh,
Yeah, it
even
did.
to this day.
Yeah. I mean, even like, and it wasn't just the love that they showed to the students, like that love and care extended to our families as well. I
Yes.
remember my niece was born, and Miss Margaret would ask about like my cousins, and my sister was out a handful of years ago, and she said, Peter came up to me and was talking to me, and it didn't just stop there. Like they genuinely
No.
showed care for who you are as a person and the people in your family, and I think that is so rare in this
It
world.
is. It is. I just got really lucky at a young age to be introduced to a top tier dance studio where I could learn how to be the best teacher possible, with some of the best students, that would set an example, not just and strive to be good for themselves and for
Mhm.
others. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a special place.
It, like you said, it's such a special place. And I think part of why it's been difficult for me to return to dance is because I keep seeking that out. And I don't know if I've accepted yet that, it's such a special place and I may not find it, and that's okay. This is actually a very timely conversation because I'm taking my first like studio class and God knows how long tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that's something in the back of my mind too, is like, is this going to feel like this environment that I had when I was so young? Probably
Yeah.
not. But
I
yeah.
guarantee you it won't. But not in it won't necessarily
Not
be
in a bad
bad,
way.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to walk in with like terrible expectations, or just like bad vibes about something. But I think it's important to walk in, because I'm like, even at my age now, I'm approaching 40. I've taught at different studios across the country. And I'm finally at a place where I can be like, I think I just need to go in here not comparing it to Spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
because there is no comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not going to be a comparison because it was so unique and special,
Right.
and the people made it that way. So if those people
Mm-hmm.
are not present, it's really hard to replicate something like that. So I actually go into these things now kind of like, okay, well, what's your story?
Right.
And then here's all of me and all of the things that I'm bringing from my time at Spotlight with me to contribute here.
Mm.
And just like leaving little sprinkles of Spotlight essence,
Yeah.
wherever I go. So maybe approach it that way.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that.
and you'll have like a good time because you'll accept what they're giving you, but then you can also give back, in
Right.
a way, and kind of nod your head to, your roots and where you've come from, and all the things that introduce you to why you love dance so much.
Okay. I love that, like, reframing of it.
Like that
Yeah.
is amazing, and I'm so proud of you for like stepping back into it, because I know that can be really scary too after such a long gap of not dancing. Like I don't even, honestly, I think I haven't taken a ballet class probably in like 7 years. Like it's been a minute. And
Yeah.
if I went in tomorrow to a class, like there would be things I just can't do anymore. And I think that's
Right.
okay to like acknowledge as well. Like your career path took you somewhere else, and you're not going to have all these things anymore because you're not doing it every single day like you were.
Yeah.
But the essence will be there. That will come. Like I think you're gonna have such a good time. You're gonna be
Thank
riding, it's like
you.
riding a bike, like
Yes.
bar. You're gonna be like ecstatic
I'm
to
gonna
be
be giddy.
bar doing PAs. You're gonna be like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And just the
Yeah.
music and the structure of it, like you're gonna love it. So
Sometimes it can be a hard mental shift to go from feeling like I was a dancer and I put so much into it, but then the idea of not going into it, like you almost sometimes feel as a failure, but not recognizing there's so many things that you learn that will set you up for success just in a different like industry or different context.
yeah, that word failure has been huge, I think, in the
Mhm.
last 10 years for me. Because I mean, especially from a dance education standpoint, you feel like you're failing if you're not teaching dance. Like you're like, what am
Mm.
I even doing? This is all I've been doing since I was 18. Why am I not doing this? Am I like totally failing at life right now?
Yeah,
You're not. Like,
no,
you're not.
you're right
And
where you're supposed to be.
yeah, exactly. So I appreciate you saying that. And well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate our conversation and some of the really important concepts that you brought up as far as superpowers.
Yeah, this was
So,
so fun.
oh my gosh, it was so fun. It was great to reconnect with you after many, many
Yes.
years. I'm really proud of you.
Mhm.
Grad school, I know firsthand is not easy. So congratulations on that and your master's degree,
Thank you.
and living in California and just like living your life and living your best life. You just got married. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And thank you once again for picking out the McBride Sisters Collection Chardonnay for today.
Yes.
And I will link Donae's information down, so if you wanted to follow her, you can. And like I said, I will link all of the wine information too in the show notes and on our socials. I will post this episode on YouTube, and you can also find it on Spotify and other streaming sources out there to listen to your podcasts. And until next time, I'm Lindsay Jean. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.